Hey, second graders, it is Miss Dorsey, and this week we are going to be talking about choosing appropriate tools to measure, and we're also going to talk about how to compare the lengths. So, to tell which one's longer or shorter, or if they're the same. Last week you talked about how to measure. We'll review that a little bit, and then we're going to measure some things and we're going to compare their lengths. But before we get started, we're going to go over some vocabulary words. Okay, boys and girls? Okay, your first word this week is compare. Compare means to examine the differences between numbers, quantities, or values to decide if it is greater than, smaller than, or equal to another quantity. So just like when we can compare numbers when we talk about comparing numbers, telling if it's greater than, less than, or equal to, we're going to do the same thing with two different measurements that we do this week. So we're going to compare them. Okay, our next word is measure. Measure means to find a number that shows the size or amount of something. So we're going to talk about measuring things in inches and centimeters this week, boys and girls. Okay, and then length. We can measure an object to find the distance from one end to the other. So length is how long something is. So like in this picture, you're going to measure how long that red line is. The length is how long it is. And then an inch, that's our next word. An inch. So an inch is a unit of measurement. It's about the size of a paper clip, a thimble, or an eraser. Okay, boys and girls? An inch. And the last word is centimeter. Centimeter is about the length of a dime, a staple, or an ant. So on our ruler, we see 1 centimeter. Inches are bigger than centimeters when you compare the two. Okay, boys and girls, so those are our words this week. We're going to talk about those multiple times during the week. Okay, now we're going to actually look at measuring some things and seeing which one is longer, shorter, or if they're the same. Okay, boys and girls, I'm going to switch my screen real quick. Okay, and I'm going to show you the document camera. Okay, and we are going to compare. Let me move it down a little bit. We are going to measure and compare these two items today in inches. We're going to focus on inches today, and then tomorrow we'll do some with centimeters, and then later in the week we're going to mix it up, do some together. Okay, boys and girls? So you learned last week that you were going to measure on your ruler. You are always going to line your ruler up. And you learned that you always start at the 0 mark, not the end of the ruler. If you start at the end of the ruler, it's going to mess with your measurements. So you always start on that first 0 mark. That's where you line your item up when you're measuring. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to do the blue cubes first. We are going to measure the blue cubes. So I'm going to take my blue cubes and I'm going to line them up at the 0 mark. And I'm going to push them against my ruler just like that. Okay, boys and girls? Now, when I go to measure, I see that it goes a little tiny bit past the 6. But it doesn't make it all the way to 6.5. So for our purposes this year, we're going to say it's closer to 6. So we're going to say the blue is 6 inches. Okay? So the blue cubes were 6 inches. Now we're going to measure the red cubes, boys and girls. Same thing. We're going to line up at the 0 mark, always starting at the 0 mark. And then we are going to see that my red cubes are about 3 inches long. okay? They are about 3 inches long, okay? So now, if I want to compare the red and the blue measurements, I am always going to take the shorter length from the longer length. So if I'm looking at 6 inches and 3 inches, who is longer? That's right, 6 inches is longer. So I'm going to say 6 minus 3 to figure out the difference in my two lengths. Okay, boys and girls, what is 6 minus 3? 3, that's right. So I would say the difference is 3 inches. It's 3 inches is the difference when I compare my blue and my red cubes, boys and girls. Okay, so a couple of things to remember. When we are comparing measurements, the first step is always measure your two items. So you have your two lengths. Then you are going to subtract the shorter length from the longer length, and then that's going to give you your difference, boys and girls. Okay, so the blue minus the red, and I find my difference when I'm comparing lengths. And it's just like if you looked at these, you automatically know, right, that the red one is shorter than the blue one. But if we want to be precise with our measurements, we're going to measure it with a ruler, and then we're going to take away or subtract the smaller number from the larger measurement that we got. So 6 minus 3, and then we had 3 inches. Okay, boys and girls? Okay, and I will see you tomorrow, and we will talk about comparing the same way when we use centimeters.